All right, let's get started. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? All the way in the back? A lot of conversations going on, I hear.
There are a few spots up here if you guys want to
Welcome everyone, both here in at the conference and online as well. And welcome to this crash course in customer-led growth. So nice to see this room filled of females. I don't know about you, but this morning in the keynote in the big auditorium, I felt so empowered because at points in my career working in tech, I have felt quite alone. I guess there's some of you who maybe have felt the same way. So sitting in that auditorium was really empowering. All right, but let's get to it. A crash course in customer-led growth. We're going to do a short round of introducing ourselves and what we're all about and why we're talking about this subject. And thereafter, we're going to go into what are the challenges and opportunities in digital sales that we see in the market currently, but also into the actual practices and theories around customer centricity and customer-led thinking that you can apply quite fast in your organizations, and really those practices and tools that you can take with you to your organizations and apply and see those fast results and measure them with real data. But first, we want to welcome you all. My name is Victoria. I'm the general manager at Columbia Road, and I'm a woman in tech. It didn't come naturally. It wasn't a conscious choice. Rather, I come from the business side, and tech was something that happened to me. Anyone else who felt that way? Yeah, quite a few. But I'm really happy that I'm here today after a years in business development and commercial roles in tech organizations. And with me, I have two colleagues.
Yes, my name is Sofia, and I work in the intersection between business and technology, and there is exactly where I thrive as well. So on a daily basis, I work a lot with sales and marketing technologies and how those can be implemented and used to drive real business growth. And I'm one of the speakers today.
My name is Mikaela, and I am a senior growth and martech consultant at Columbia Road. And I come from a background of pretty much e-commerce. I've been working in a lot of different roles in e-commerce and digital business space, no matter what kind of industry it is, for a little over a decade now.
Great. Now we've introduced ourselves and we can go over to introducing Columbia Road. Anybody who is familiar with Columbia Road or have some? Nice. Columbia Road, we are a digital sales and marketing consultancy, and we consist of 150 plus people who you can see here in the picture. Quite a diverse group of people, I would like to say. We represent over 22 nationalities. And we are a completely community-led organization, so zero hierarchy. Meaning that all our people are consultants. We want to empower them with the possibility to impact their daily work with their clients, but also how we develop as an organization. And we have a whole framework around that. You can read more on our webpage. But it's seen in how you can take roles in other things than consulting, from helping us assess salary fairness of our people, to working in HR-related task forces, to internal learning, to our sales and marketing initiatives. And we want to empower the whole group in the things that they like to engage in and how they see that we can develop as an organization. And we've we've seen it in our numbers. It really works. We've been growing organically, profitably since the start 8 years ago. And I'm really proud to represent Columbia Road because this is the first time I am in an organization in a tech company that is this diverse and is this equal. We have a zero agenda gap when it comes to salaries. I'm really proud of that it's taken seriously and it's an important matter. And that we see that in order to solve complex problems for our clients, we need a diverse set of skills. And those skills that we think are needed represent 3 areas. We, of course, need developer competencies, engineers, platform experts who can work on actually building those applications, whether it's e-commerce, a CRM, a web page, a customer portal, etc. But we also need to think about the users and the customers. And of course, this topic here today, customer centricity and customer-led growth. So we need designers, service designers, UX designers who can really bring that insight into what is it that actually makes a difference for the user, for the customer. And we also need marketing technologists in order to support any kind of commercial channel, whether it is a marketing channel, whether it is an e-commerce site or so forth. We need to be able to bring the audience there and the relevant people to actually find these channels that we've built so fancy. So these are the 3 skill sets that we represent and that we think matter in order to succeed in building and growing any kind of digital sales interface. And we're really passionate about this subject. So passionate that we've written a couple of books on the topic. This one is a handbook in growth hacking. We have a whole bunch here in the back of the room. So if you feel like you want to learn more, want to have some actual physical reading to take with you home, please grab a copy on your way out. And next, thinking about customer centricity, customer-led growth, you easily think about growing revenue and profits, right? But this theory and this method can be applied to different kinds of use cases. And we've done so for various industries and clients. We can apply it to become more efficient in what we do and reduce workloads on things that actually can be automated and doesn't bring any extra value, so that the people who work in these organizations that can actually focus on the customers or providing that extra value where it's needed. It can also be applied to thinking about scaling up a service or launching a new product and doing that faster, leaner, and with better results. So taking that with you when you think about the theories that we're going to go through together soon. And before I hand over to my experienced colleagues on the actual growth, crash course topic, I wanted to mention what we believe is the 3 pillars setting the foundation to enable any kind of initiatives to grow successfully. We believe there's 3 parts. The first one being the one we're focusing on today, having the possibility to become more data-driven, fast, and experimental when driving different initiatives to grow any kind of digital application that aims to sell to a new or existing audience. But if you don't have the proper foundation, the tools, the platforms, the technologies in place, it's impossible to work on this fast-paced experimentation. So in parallel, you also need to build on the technologies that actually set the foundations. And thirdly, it's very important to have a joint shared strategy for transforming as a company. And this is a lot about also bridging the gap between maybe engineering departments, IT, business, marketing, customer service, and delivery. And this is what we think is the foundation and founding pillars to succeed in any kind of digital commerce. And with that said, I'm handing over to Sofia, who will go into the actual crash course. Thank you.
Oh yeah, give her an applause. Yes, so as the headline of this focus session already reveals, we're going to talk about customer-led growth. And what is customer-led growth? Well, to summarize it, you can say that it's a business strategy that prioritizes the needs and experiences of the customer and means that the customer base is the most valuable asset for a company. So putting a heavy emphasis on building strong relationships and with the customers to increase satisfaction and loyalty. And that is what we all are doing, right? Keeping our customers' interests in mind and making sure that we give them what they want, when they want, throughout the entire customer journey. We have endless opportunities today to work with data. We can access data. We can implement different initiatives to actually get the correct data and how we use that. We have other opportunities for personalized ads and content. Seems to only coming more and more with the rapid technological development. And we know that companies can engage with their customers wherever they are, all at once in different channels. But the reality looks a little bit different. So let's have a look at some numbers, because of course we want to back up our claims with some data. The 360 view of the customer, that's something everybody is talking about right now, just as personalization. In order to be able to personalize at a deep level, we need a comprehensive understanding of the customer and the customer needs. A majority of the companies actually think that they know what the customers want. They have a clear 360 view of the customers. But only 25% of the customers agree with this. And 88% of customers believe that less than half of the content that they are delivered from companies are relevant for them. 44% of customers don't recognize any value from being a loyal customer. And 64% of customers think that only new customers gets the best deals and the best experiences. And what does this tell us? Well, customers today feel undervalued, which of course impacts the likelihood for churn and loyalty. In the digital landscape today, we know that gathering and utilizing data is how to walk the walk to create the optimal digital experience. And we also know that there are many ways to do so. We're just getting more and more different approaches on how to gather and use the data. However, for the 8% of customers actively decide to not share their data with companies. And what does this tell us? Well, it shows a huge privacy concern and a lack of trust on how companies gather and use our data. And I think we are many in this room that can recognize ourselves in that we sometimes feel a little bit hesitant of filling in the forms or accepting the cookies and so on. This also gives a troublesome view on the accuracy of the data that is actually gathered. Because how can we claim that we know what the customers want if we actually can't really know what it is? If we take a look at the B2B side of digital sales, a whole 90% of buyers consider switching suppliers if that would mean that they would get a superior digital customer experience. And in B2B sales, we talk a lot about relationship buildings and how important those are. But can this really be overseen that easily with just the digital customer experience maybe not being enough? And of course, business leaders knows that the customers are important, but there is a clear delivery gap in the perception of the organizations believing that they know the customers and what the customers think. And getting to know our customers is hard. It's really hard. And we have to do that in the competitive landscape today. And at the same time as we want to focus on increasing both profit and revenue. We have a little bit of engagement from you now. You don't have to answer any questions one by one, but we're going to show you an example that we have been doing for different audiences at different times. So this is an A/B testing that our colleagues at Columbia Road did for Marimekko, the quite popular Finnish brand. What was tested here was a landing page on the website. Now this is in Finnish, but essentially the purpose was to see which one of these three would get more membership sign-ups with a little discount code. So we have the version A here, where if it's viewable, there's a little button here in the corner that urge you to sign up. Version B, a pop-up with a CTA call to action. And then version C here, with a form with all these details to be filled in. So I wanted to ask in here which one you think actually performed the best. So let's do what we say in Swedish, handupräckning, raising our hands. If you think it was version A, raise your hands. Yeah. Version B. Oh, yeah. And version C. Oh, one person. It was actually version C. Yeah. And we don't have too much time on stage now, so we can't dwell very deeply into this. But if you want to talk about it afterwards, just reach out to any of us. But what this tells us is obviously that there is a huge delivery gap in the perception. And for information, I also thought version B when I heard about this for the first time. If there's anybody in here that's unfamiliar with the customer journey, this is an example of what it can look like. Now this one is a little bit more condensed. We will show a more comprehensive version later on as well. But it's basically a mapping showing the journey that a customer embarks on from having a need, creating awareness of different products and services, consider which one and where to buy, eventually making the decision, using the product, and then hopefully becoming a loyal customer or churning. And throughout the customer journey, there are several potential pitfalls that leads to the issues that we talked a little bit about already, such as basing activities on personal beliefs, which one we think will perform the best, for example, instead of actually testing and getting feedback on what is working. Further, the foundation and the execution of utilizing quality data can easily be fragmented and underused, and that in turn leads to a false understanding. The fact that such a high percentage of the customers don't see any relevance in the content that is being delivered to them speaks a lot for that and shows the challenges we have in getting actual customer insights. Furthermore, we have a various team always working with the different parts of the customer journey and the customer interactions. And are those not aligned or work together, maybe with different KPIs and different objectives, this also leads to internal deviations and silos. And if there is nobody that actually takes ownership of the data gathered, translating it and converting it to real actionables, we have additional challenges. So we need to have a good way of interacting with our customers at each stage in the journey, as well as nurture their relationships without meeting our customers face-to-face in the digital landscape. And the higher the engagement or the complexity of the purchase, of course, the more important that need becomes. And it's not uncommon today that companies are focusing high investments on initiatives that have unclear outcomes, or focus on targeting and acquiring new customers instead of the ones that they already have, building relationships and working for retention. And this is something that we saw, that 44% of the customers don't feel any loyalty towards their companies, and 64% believes that only new customers get the best deals or the best experience. And of course, we further need to recognize that not all the customers are the same. Everybody has individual needs, and not everybody purchases for the same reasons or for the same reasons at different times in the customer journey. And this is something that we need to tackle. And there are plenty of ways to do so, luckily. Yeah. And that is a little bit what my colleague here is going to talk about.
Yes. We talked about gaps of your internal view on how customer-centric you actually are and what the customer believes from the outside-in perspective. And I would say one reason for this that I think is a very, very common pitfalls in a lot of organizations is whether you are customer first, customer centric, or if you are product first. And we've talked a lot about this internally to try to figure out what are the actual differences, because they overlap a bit. And I would say one of the crucial questions is these first questions. So if you are product first, you may ask yourself, who is interested in my product? And if you're customer first, you ask yourself, what is my customer interested in right now? And what happens to a lot of customer or companies that are product focused is that they have too big of an overlap in the prospective customer of each product. So if your products aren't completely separated from one another and targeting completely different target audiences, which most companies don't function that way, there is a real issue that probably most of your customers are in the overlap between the different products. So if you then ask the customer, is this what you want? They will have been flooded with product information about everything that you sell, and probably not at the time that is right for you. While if you're customer focused, you more sort of take the customer by the hand and follow them throughout their customer journey and give them the products that are relevant for them at the specific time that is relevant for them. So we preach that customer centricity is the way to go. It's more aligned with the customer, and it's sort of a win-win situation because it makes the customers happy, feels like you serve them and not the other way around. And they don't feel like you're just trying to push all of what you're selling. One example of this that I think we can all relate to, because we're all customers of banks. So we made a banking example, which is if they're product focused, they might have split their marketing teams into different product categories because they're a huge organization. So you may call the bank and say, I'm interested in actually getting a mortgage here or moving my mortgage from one bank to this bank. But what happens in the background, if you're not 100% in sync, is that we also have then the savings team who are pushing their savings product on you because you're the perfect candidate to start saving your money into funds or fixed rate accounts and so on. And then maybe a couple weeks later, they push the mortgages, but then it's too late. You already made your decision. It's no longer relevant to you. And you might get occasionally a message that aligns with your expectations. So in this scenario, you got the card and then they start pushing for savings again and mortgages and so on. And it's like a cycle. It's a fight between the different product categories and reaching the same customer. If they were to do this with a more customer-centric view, you call the bank, you say you're interested in switching banks for your mortgage. They pick that up in the digital channel. So everything else is shut off. And maybe they remind you, this is what we offer you, this is the interest rate, this is how you switch banks easily, because they know this. You've given them a very clear indication that this is something that you want to do. And then if you make that sale or if you swap that banks, chill for a bit. Don't start pushing for the next best product. Actually, use some loyalty. Like, why did you make such a great choice? What are the benefits of then aligning your business into one bank? And you can chill for a bit longer as well, because most likely if you're a bank, you're not going to be ready for the next big thing after you just moved your mortgage. It's a huge thing to do. And then after a few months, maybe you're interested in what you can do with all of the money that you're saving from this new interest rate or whatever you got. So why don't they do this? Well, Sofia talked about it a bit, but a huge issue is the silos. We don't break those silos. We have the marketing team with their own targets and KPIs, and then we have sales, and then we have CRM and services. And you would think that the bigger a company is, the more resources they have to break those silos. Usually what happens is that they brought even more layers of silos. So then maybe they have these streams of the product categories built in here somewhere. So their marketing team is actually 5 separate teams targeting similar customers. And to have this 360 view, to guide the customer with them in mind first, you need to know them. You need to know what all these other guys are doing. You need to have that centricity view and a prioritization to make sure that you don't sort of just throw everything at one single person. So how do you do it? Where do you start? The first step is obviously you need to know your customer. We have this tool, customer journey map, that you can actually download from our website or this QR code. But it's a great tool. There are many out there, but there's a great tool to just map out each touch point that you have with your customer. Each point from, I'm going to switch so it's bigger, from awareness to loyalty, CRM, everything. You need to know each and every touch point. You need to know their experience. How good is their experience in each step? Because to the customer, you're not all of the marketing departments and sales department and everything, or the different product teams. You are one. You're one brand. You should be perceived as one. And the only way to do that is actually to map out what is an actual customer's experience. You also have goals for different things. So there's a lot here that you can map up to really understand how you can improve each step of the journey to make sure that their experience will be excellent all throughout the journey, and that they're not a disallocation between two steps, for example. And another little reminder is it's not linear, like in our pretty slide. It goes around, and you then need to understand for the loyal customers so that you don't miss them, because they are usually the foundation of the revenue for your business. Where do they re-enter in the next purchase and the next, and so on? It might not be fully to awareness, because they are probably aware of your brand if they're loyal customers. So then when do they re-enter, and what is their experience when they re-enter? Another critical thing to do this right, so now you have the mapping, you know your customers a bit better, is that you need to start testing. Our philosophy, or what we preach as consultants, is to start small. Maybe if the aim is to do a full web shop renewal, you start with one single campaign page and you test it. Is it better than what you already have? If that is successful, you learn a bit along the way. You go to A/B testing, maybe some new features, maybe the checkout, something central, to understand what your customer thinks of these changes that you're doing. Then you move on to an MVP, which we think is critical in any big development project. What is the minimal viable product that you can create and push out to your customers to get the right feedback? Once you have that feedback, you've adjusted your MVP so it's working and people are liking it, then maybe it's time for the full force website renewal project. Otherwise, what happens if you go to the end of that funnel, you go big, is usually this. So you have a huge project, you invest months in development, or even if it's a marketing campaign, you invest a lot of money and resources into doing it. And you do the testing, you follow the guidebook, like I'm A/B testing. So if it's a winner, you're so happy. You implement it with confidence. However, if the test is a fail, usually people implement it anyways, because you put too much effort and resources into it. So you just come up with a reasoning that we can't trust that data. It's not right. Our assumptions to that development is right. And obviously that leaves you with a worse performing website than what you already had. No company wants that. So what you need to do is you have actual customer data. You know your customer, you know what their problem is with your product or your website or whatever it is. You create some hypotheses internally, or maybe even better, together with the customer if you could get that. You prioritize the ideas based on effort, but also impact. And then you test it. And this crucial step here is that you discard the tests that fail. You need to be open to the idea that even if you had a brilliant idea that would solve the problem that your customer had, your solution might not be the answer. Their problem, you know, but everything in here are hypotheses. You don't know exactly what the solution is to their problem. That's why you test, and that's why you discard quickly. Then you move to production for the winning tests. And you shouldn't be afraid to discard tests, because it's still a learning, a little bit like playing Battleship. Even if you fail, you don't hit the ship in that one point, you learn something from it. That was not the direction to go. Let's check here instead. Maybe if you do a lot of testing, you also see a pattern, and you can come up with new, great ideas and hypotheses from those failed tests that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise. That's also, if you want to convince someone, how you get the big bucks or the big increases in whatever you're measuring. Because if you test small all the time, the failed route is down here. But if you keep testing and you choose the winner all the time, you'll be up here. If you do big bang tests, most likely the improvements won't be as great, because you'll also release a bunch of failures along the way. So I'm going to do a quick summary of what I just went through. First of all, bridge the gap by finding out what your customers want. Ask them. Don't assume you know your customer. Don't assume that you are your customer, which I think a lot of people also do. They put themselves as the target audience, and I would say a lot of us are not the target audience of whatever we're doing. And then understand their journey. Understand each step of your journey. Even if you're working with loyalty, you need to understand how they got to know your brand. What were their assumptions when purchasing? What did you sell them on to do loyalty well? So everyone needs to understand the full customer journey. And then experiment and start small. Do little tests and have that as a central part of your organization along the way. Because then you can implement things with confidence, and you can change things with confidence, instead of whatever someone behind you was yelling very loudly. It's also a great tool to shut those people up. If you have someone very loudly yelling something, we should do it this way, test it. And then you know, is it the way to go or not? And now we have some time for questions. Maybe you already have a question about the first sort of visual that Sofia tested you on, why the version C was the winning one. Do we have any questions? I mean, we obviously don't know exactly why. We have some ideas of why. If I just go back to that slide quickly. One assumption is that here you actually see what data you give away. You know exactly what they're asking for. This is just a button. What happens when you click that button, you don't know. Another hypothesis is that if you give a company more information, your experience will be better. You will actually get more targeted communication. It won't be just a load of what you're not interested in your inbox, as if you just give them your email, for example. They know nothing about you. In this sense, maybe they actually target you and not everyone else in this room. But it was a clear winner.
That one is also just one step. You fill in your information, you press send,
yeah.
You can continue on your website. You don't know where you actually are going to get if you're pressing that button in the middle.
Very good point. It's very transparent.
Yeah.
And usually customer appreciates transparency no matter where it is.
And I think it also comes back to design. You might sometimes, it can be quite annoying working with data-driven development, because it's not only always the most visually appealing design that wins. Sometimes something that actually might look a bit uglier is working better.
Very fair point. Actually, something that studies shows that we're pretty bad at doing in Sweden, or the Nordics in general. We're very visual design focused and maybe not so functional design, which is why websites like Amazon look like crap, but they really work. Yes?
What would you recommend as a first?
There's a mic for you, I guess, so people hear you online as well.
Oh, now this is embarrassing. What would you recommend as a first step for a small scale-up or startup to start implementing a customer-led growth?
I would say the customer journey mapping, first of all, especially if you're new. Maybe you really have no idea who your customer is. You created something great, but then who is interested for real and not just who you envisioned would be interested. Then figure out how to start testing things. And if you're small, it might be even easier to like build a good relationship with your customers. You can ask them directly. Testing doesn't have to be extremely automated and at a big scale. You can actually ask people, do you prefer this or that? Or actually, if you have an online service, you can view what they view when they go through the different items and ask them questions along the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just took the mic, sorry.
Perfect.
So you seem to be advocating that we actually choose what product to sell within the products that a company has. But you are not advocating, true customer centricity would be developing products based on customer needs, or?
You are 100% correct.
Thank you.
That is the true customer centricity. And some companies do that. I would say most companies don't do that. So we have solutions for how to be customer centric with the products that you have. But obviously, I think one of our colleagues used it as an example. If you go to the hairdresser, they are truly customer centric. They're there to do their thing, but you decide exactly what they do to you. It's not like they have a selection that you choose from. And I think it's really cool with those ideas that are extremely custom to you and your needs. But it also obviously is hard because then you need a lot more behind it to support that if you don't have it already. So I think this is something that most companies can do to actually then follow the customer throughout their journey, throughout their life cycle, no matter what they sell.
And maybe another point of view is many of the most successful, most growing companies from the Silicon Valley that you probably know about are expert in testing and do hundreds and thousands of tests and develop their products and services test driven. But another challenge that we've noticed is that some companies, they do testing. They're good at doing tests, but in the end, you're just optimizing the same thing. And in the end, it doesn't make a significant difference anymore. Well, what do you do then? So you should always have the complete go wild and crazy explore path as well. So not just optimize what you have, try something completely new, go crazy and test out something that hasn't even been done before, and do it as small, as cheap as possible, and then scale it up. One fun example, I think it was the Swedish gym chain that as an April Fool's joke, they launched a product that was I think it like 5 kilo coffee cup, but then it ended up selling a lot of coffee cups, so it became a product. So these kind of fun experiments might sometimes actually become something. On just your comment there.
Yeah, and if you want to have a fallback, April Fool's is a great day to do it, because then you can always blame it on that day, even if it's a real suggestion that you want to try out. Yes.
Yes, thank you for a good presentation. I have a question that is a little bit specific, but we work with both users on one hand and then towards customers who are more like B2B, and the users are individuals. Do you have any advice on how to balance those two groups and kind of be customer-centric both ways?
I think we have a lot of customers like that, where we have the B2C and B2B business. And obviously the customer journey mapping that we have here is a little bit more targeted to B2C, an individual. We also have what we call a buyer persona mapping, which is a bit more targeted to B2B, because then it's a lot more levels. You need to convince a lot more people to sell that product. The person who buys it might be different from the person who uses it and then who decides whether or not you renew that contract. So I think treating them as separate entities is important, but even in the buyer journey of a business, you need to understand the individuals behind it. Because after all, it's never a company that buys something, it actually is the individuals within that company. So I think you should have different processes, but at its core, you need to understand the buyers as well as the company that you're selling to, and then the consumer on one side. And if you're selling the same thing, obviously the consumer also gives you an idea of the users in the company, because most likely they're at least a little bit similar. So map out both journeys specifically and then their touch points as well, and make sure that you optimize their experience across the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm curious how you would do testing for a product that doesn't have a lot of users. Interviews can be really useful, but it can take a long time to reach saturation, and that doesn't really go hand in hand with doing the testing quickly. So what would be your go-to methods to do testing in that kind of situation?
I would say it depends a lot on obviously what you want to test, but one thing is to then not care much about the little things. Maybe don't change the color of a button or whatever we have as a use case for very simple testing, but change something that is a bit central to their customer journey, so that at least most of your customer has to go through that stage. So then you get as much user data as you can. And even if we say test quickly, obviously it's harder if you don't have as many users using it, but then mostly the test quickly is to also learn quickly. So don't invest a huge amount in what you want to do without having the knowledge that it will work. So even if the test might take longer in actual time, it's hopefully not a huge investment for you as a company, so that the fail will be unpleasant. But there are different ways. Do you guys have another suggestion for smaller businesses?
Well, of course, qualitative testing should be as not only working with data, and also when it comes to companies selling to maybe a few big customers, rather than having a lot of maybe traffic to measure on a website or something else, then you have to start looking at different type of data points. But also third-party data. Is there something you can compare to benchmark?
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for a nice presentation. I was wondering, when you make the customer journey map, what is the best method that works in many cases? And then I also wondering, when you have user interviews, there are some users really interested in the product, but there are some really not interested in participation. Do you have any tricks to make them more motivated or get more comments about it?
Ooh. All right. The first question, I think for the customer journey mapping, you obviously need a diverse group of people in the room. You can't do it from one perspective. You need someone from each step of the customer journey to be in that room. You do it together as a company, because otherwise it won't land well. Even if you can map it up really well, it won't land well. And also validate with an actual customer. Bring a customer maybe into the room, or offer them something to see what actually lands in their inbox and the app or whatever you have, because that's also usually where there's a discrepancy, is that you don't, even if some of your employees are also customers, I think the bank is a great example, most employees are then customers of that bank, their experience will be very different to that of an actual customers, because you're going to have some filtration out of employees. You're going to have some specific cases that are only relevant to employees. So it won't be the generic customer experience. So you need to have a real customer, so to speak, to follow their journey. So a lot of stakeholders from all over your organization, as well as actual customers. And in the other scenario that I almost forgot, what was that question? Yes, how to motivate user if you have users in the room. Ask direct questions. Don't let people just... We're all different. I think even in meetings at a workplace, you notice that some people talk a lot, some people talk less. To get the people to talk less, ask them questions. Make sure that they participate. Ask how they experience something so that you get an actual answer. And obviously, as in any situation where you want a lot of information, keep it open answers. Don't just let them say yes or no. And then usually when people who maybe are a bit more quiet in that group setting, if they get the word, they might have a lot to say. They just don't take that space. Or break it up into smaller groups. Make sure that they have a space that they feel safe to give this information. And I guess as in anything where you talk and take time out of your customers, give them some incentive or something to thank them for their effort, because obviously there is a lot of time to go to a company and do this. So what do they get in return?
One last point on the customer journey mapping, and as we say, like preach, it's a starting point. I think one thing I would really love for everybody to take away from here is not to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect data set, to have all the tools in place, to have all the competencies in place. That will basically never happen. Map the journey. You'll find out most likely where it hurts the most, both internally in how you organize, what the tools are, whose responsibility it is, how the customer experiences it, where you have the data or where you don't have the data. Start with some data set that you have. Start utilizing that. Start testing. It will bring you results, and that will empower you to continue and invest more.
Thank you so much.